place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Live, maybe, possibly. If somebody's in the comments, let me know if this is actually functioning correctly, because indication is it might not be. But anyway, yeah, so can't say that I'm here by myself. I'm here minus Nicole this week. And Mama Sauce is here, which is very nice because I don't have to maintain 2 fires. Oh, cool. Thank you, Rachel. A, I don't have to maintain 2 fires, and B, she's done most of the cooking, so I don't have to worry about cooking food. So just with those 2 things, that makes everything here so much easier. Like, food is the vein of my existence when I'm normally running things by myself because it requires stopping for usually like an hour or something. So I've actually been able to be pretty well productive not having to worry about those 2 things this week, even with the fact that we are running 3 flocks of sheep right now, which has been really interesting, I guess. It just throws the rotation off because I normally have 2 feed scoops on the front of my 4-wheeler, so it's like, okay, I've got 2 flocks of sheep right next to each other, but I've got to make trips back and forth because I can't carry enough stuff. So, anyway, we did have a sheep rebellion last week, and I think when we did the live stream last week, they were all in the backyard at base camp because it's hard fenced and it was the easiest place to get them. And then I quickly set up sheep jail here, which is in the old pig pasture, what's now considered the chicken yard. And it's 3 strands of electric inside of a hard fence, and then there's, I think it's literally 8 strands of electric across like an 8-foot opening. That's just the temptation for them to try it. And I don't know. They've been in there for 7 days, and I don't know if anybody has even attempted to get out. But anyway, we did have 2 of the girls that were in there, plus one over that's still in the pasture, look like they're pregnant. Not supposed to be pregnant, but they look like they're pregnant. So I went on this morning and I broke the 2 that are over here off and put them in with Stormy, who's over here, and then moved them to Stormy's next paddock. So that actually went pretty smoothly. Got enough hard fencing over here that it's not hard to kind of run, 5, 6, 8 posts in between some stuff and throw up a wire real quick and basically make a chute. And so I managed to get the 2 that I wanted to separate out the gate of the hard fence and did that one at a time. And while I was getting the second one, the other one was just like, there's a gate and it's closed and I can't get back in. I'm like, yeah, I know. Threw the other one out and then with some sweet feed, walked them over and put them in with Stormy. So that actually went pretty smoothly. And then the trick is going to be this afternoon, I need to get the other 4 a quarter of a mile up the road and into the paddock with everybody else. So that's going to be the interesting one. I don't know. I got half of mine because I know the ram will follow me to go get the ram out of the pasture, bring him back here, and then take all of them back over to the pasture. I don't know if I'm going to attempt that or whether I want to just try to get everybody to follow me over there. Probably, I don't know, might probe it just to see what they do when I let them out and then go from there. But then we did have, yesterday I was out doing a couple of things and I could hear Max and one of the dogs. And I was like, well, I don't know if that's Max. It doesn't quite sound like Max. We went over there and sure enough, it was Max. And I was like, what's, like, it wasn't like a yelp. It was almost like an irritated noise. And so I sat there and just, I was a good 200 yards away. And so I just sat there and watched. And for whatever reason, that the ram was doing something to provoke the dog. And I think that because there's only 4 of them over there right now, the ram is just bored and he wants to play with the dog. And the dog doesn't like playing like that because the dog is not a sheep. So that's another incentive for me to try to get everybody back over there today, is a little bit more entertainment for the ram so that he leaves the dogs alone. So that's another thing that I've got going today. And then in the midst of everything else, it's like Nicole's got, if you have not seen it yet, she's got cans for, like, it's not a number 10 can, but it's kind of like a number 10 can that she's shipping coffee in. They're kind of cool. And she's got an old school hand crank deal to put the lid onto the cans. And so there was a whole back and forth over getting that thing mounted. And so I finally, while she's gone, got around to getting a table workbench thing in there. And so it's now an L-shaped thing. It's one side's 8 foot long and the other is 8 foot. So it's like 8 foot going one way and 8 foot going the other way. And one section is 3 foot deep, the other is 2 foot deep. So I don't know if she's eventually going to, on the 3 foot one, she might want to put some shelves or something eventually. But that basically took me all day, one day, to get that in and engineered. Because the other thing was she wanted the cans that she's got on rollers to be able to roll underneath the bench, which means it sits up a little bit higher than what you would normally put like a counter at. I think it's the perfect height for me, but I'm 6'4". But anyway, so that was a whole nother feat of engineering, was trying to figure out how to do that. And that floor is not completely level. And then it was like, so just figuring out what height to put that thing at was a feat of engineering in and of itself. And what I wound up doing was setting the frame for the table on the cans. I wanted 1.5 inches at least in between the bottom of the frame and the can. Well, 2x4 is about 1.5 inches. So I shoved a 2x4 in between the frame and the cans, which got it roughly into position, and then a couple of shims and started sliding stuff underneath until I got everything kind of leveled up, and then started screwing it in to the wall. And then I had to individually measure and cut each leg individually because they were all different height. So, like, I'm totally giving myself extra redneck points for that little feat of engineering. But anyway, that is done, and it's actually surprising how much nicer it is in there with that in there like that. So will be interesting to see what exactly she does with it when she gets back, and how she sets everything up and so forth and so on. But that was another big project this week. And we're also looking at doing some stuff in the basement to make that classroom a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I guess. So I'm in the process of spending an excessive amount of time staring at a wall and trying to figure out exactly how I want to do what with building onto that to enclose some stuff. And we're also getting ready to paint down there, so that's another thing that has to get figured out, is what the prep work for that is going to be. Number 10 can sealer sounds great for freeze drying. Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Putting the freeze dried stuff in the cans. I have to remember to mention that to her. There's no telling what all we could actually shove in there. I mean, it should, like, it's got a CO2 vent thing on the top, but I don't know if that's necessary. I'm sure she can get it without it. That's an interesting thought process, though. I like where your head's at. And yes, redneck engineering, common sense, and critical thinking, as well as just simply doing things. Like, if you want to find the absolute easiest way to do something, make a redneck do it over and over again. I guarantee you, if there is a way to simplify that process, a redneck will figure it out. So, like Amazon, you just need like a fleet of rednecks to go around and streamline all of your processes. Like, you would save a ton of money, I guarantee you. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, so we got some other stuff going on with the basement and whatnot down there. I think we've got a couple of classes planned out, scheduled tentatively or untentatively. So I don't know exactly what she has posted up right now as far as that goes and where all of them are going to be, but we're in the process of making some of that stuff a little bit nicer. I know that we do have the farm table dinner coming up on the 15th. I'm actually looking forward to that. I mean, I like food, so of course I'm looking forward to that. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what Chef Brett pulls out for that one. So if you have not gotten tickets for that, I think there are a couple left. I also think that the cutoff date is Sunday, I think. Maybe. It's soon. So if you haven't gotten a ticket yet and you're thinking about it, you might want to do it quick and in a hurry. But anyway, so we've got that coming up. other than that, I mean, like with the rest of the livestock and everything, it's just been kind of ops normal. Rabbits are being rabbits, ducks are being ducks. Um, it's been, I'm not really sure what's up with it, but um, we've got a group of ducks that I call the senior citizens. They're the older flock. I think there's 6 of them left. And for whatever reason, they've been a little protesty about going to bed for like 3 days now. I'm not really sure exactly what's up with that. Like, they come down like they're ready to go to bed, but then they don't want to go down into the coop. So I got to go up and run them in there. So hopefully they will get over that relatively quickly. But I did go on and set up for the 2 babies that hatched out right after SRF. They got a big girl coop in the actual coop with everybody else. So I moved. I'm trying to think of what that tray came from. I've got a big, like, it's 2 foot by 2 foot. It's a tray that came with something that I was like, I'm never going to use that for this. I think it came with like a rabbit cage or something. And so it's been sitting on the deck, leaned up against the wall, because it's like, it'll be useful for something. And sure enough, I found a use for it. So those 2 were just cruising through the little 1 quart watering thing that you get for poultry. And so I was like, I'm going to upgrade them to the 5 gallon one when I move them down there. And so I set the 5 gallon water in that tray, and that mostly kept the water from getting splashed out into the litter and making everything nasty. And so first night, everything is cool. Second night, the next morning I go in and the 2 babies are outside of their little area with everybody else. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I picked them up, set them back in their little area, and then the next morning I go out, same thing. So I was like, all right. So I just cut the zip ties and pulled the grates that I had blocking off their little area out and left the door to the coop open. And of course, they did not leave the coop. Like, there's an absolutely scary world out there that they wanted nothing to do with. So they just hung out in the coop. And then when I put the rest of the ducks to bed that night, I went on and pulled the water out so the adult ducks did not make an absolute mess of everything in there. And then when I let everybody out the next morning, I put the water back in. And last I checked, the 2 babies still have not come out of the coop. So I'm just going to continue that cycle until they eventually do decide to come out. I mean, they're definitely big enough that, like, I looked at them after each time that they were out with everybody else and they were not getting picked on. Like, they weren't getting beat up by anybody else. So I was like, all right, that part's fine. The big question is going to be when they find the pond, because they're not feathered out yet. So, I mean, they're definitely putting on weight and they're getting their size on them, but they haven't started putting on their real feathers yet. So, we got that going. Oh, squeaks. Oh, yes, squeaks. Squeaks is at the fun stage. So if you don't know who Squeaks is, if you're just now tuning in, Squeaks is the baby kitten. And Squeaks is in full play mode. So the entire living room is just one giant kitten playground with all sorts of cool stuff to run under and climb up and jump off of. She has absolutely mastered the superhero landing for jumping off of high things. Like 10 out of 10. Like she's got that part down. And then this morning at some point I walk in and was pointed to the cage because she is scaling the inside of the cage like Spider-Man on some kind of a jungle jump. Like she is in full about to be kitten mess mode. She's definitely gearing up for the sounding like a stampede of elephants going through the living room. She just doesn't have the weight to make the noise yet. But she's practicing really hard for that day. So yeah, it's been really entertaining watching her and like provoking her to do things. Like I'll let her get up on my shoulders and then I'll lean close to the couch, but not so close that she can just step off. She's got to like jump. So it's a little bit too much fun. Watch, that cat's gonna end up in my house. But anyway, trying to think if there's anything else. That's the only other big thing is, well, actually two other things. I did finally, I needed to stop with the math on construction projects because it was like my brain was getting so dyslexic. Like I need to do something mindless. And so I went over and started playing with the cistern for the spring at base camp. So I got the overflow pipe for that replaced, which was causing all sorts of problems. And there was another hole in the side of that cistern where there was an old pipe that had rusted and expanded and caused all sorts of other problems. So I patched that as well. So that is almost ready to hook everything back up the right way. And at that point, you will have the water that comes out of the spring and goes into that cistern and then overflows into the pond. And then from there, like we haven't decided specifically if we're going to use it to like irrigate beds or, you know, hook it back up to the house or what we're going to do with it exactly. But, you know, once I get everything hooked back up, the options will be open for whatever we want to do with that. So I did get that done. And then also the duck coop desperately needs to get mucked out. And I've been procrastinating on that because I do not have a compost pile to add it to yet. But I just figured out how I'm actually doing it. And I think I have all of the stuff to assemble it. And one of the big holdups was the breather tubes that I needed. And I'm basically taking what Spirko does and trying to simplify it a little bit with his breather tubes. So I got 2 of the tubes prepped today, and I need to actually put the weed cloth on them. So hopefully in the next week or so, maybe I'll get a video done about actually putting these compost piles together, and we're going to see how they do. I'm hoping it's going to be basically what Spirko does, but a little bit simpler. So we'll see. But trying to think if there was anything else. That's been most of the excitement here for the week. So we've actually got, like, for, you know, the start of fire season, it was like 9 o'clock today before I was like, I am actually sweating and have to strip out of long sleeves. Ooh, any tips for lambing in the fall? Got 3 that are ready to pop within a month. Yeah, none of us want that. I'm kind of looking at possibly December, January for a couple of mine. Yeah, all of us want lambs in the spring. So I don't know if you put in the comments, have you actually had lambs yet? Or is this your first set? My first one was back there. And of course, they're always going to pick like the steepest part of a paddock to be in when they give birth. Like it's just like a default mode. Like you could have a perfectly flat paddock with a 10 square foot area that's like this, and that's where they'll give birth at. The main thing I would say is absolutely making sure that when they give birth, okay, not my first set, it's normally spring. Okay. So yeah, I mean, all of the normal stuff, really making sure that they get enough colostrum, watching for hypothermia, and preferably if you can have some form of something for them to get out of the wind. I don't know what your terrain is like. They're also in a tractor, very flat, so they're not getting away. So that's good. If they're in a tractor, just making sure that they have like a good windbreak. I don't know that I would necessarily go as far as to throwing like a heat lamp or anything in there. I don't even know if they would use it. If they're in a confined space like that, then they're probably going to be cuddling up with, everybody else. So I wouldn't expect to have any problems with that. It's just mostly making sure that, all the normal stuff about them bonding with mom and getting enough colostrum, regular feedings. I would probably make sure that you're, just for good measure, making sure that mom has access to plenty of minerals. And then in the event that you do have any problems with hypothermia, if they've bonded with mom, what I would look at doing is having some form of a large bin, like in your living room or a mud room or something, with a heat lamp, blankets and towels, blanket over top, so that if you have to, you can go grab the baby, bring it in, put it in there, get it warmed up, and then as much as possible, as long as it's maintaining its body temp well enough, you can take it back off and let them nurse off of mom. We've done that before. We've had one that actually would overnight in the house, and then first thing in the morning, he went back out, and we just checked him throughout the day to make sure that he wasn't totally going downhill with hypothermia, but getting them nursing off of mom and the bonding with that as well, because that's one of the problems I've had with Stormy, because she was a straight bottle baby, is the fact that she's just so small. She's never going to be full size for her breed. I mean, I've got one of the rams that we just took to get processed was 100 pounds. The average is supposedly 80. But Stormy ain't never going to be that. And then I've had one that we were doing supplemental milk. So he was getting some milk off of mom, but not enough. So we were supplementing with a bottle, and that one never hit full size either. So as much as possible, keeping them with mom and on her milk is better. But just watching for the hypothermia thing, if you do need to like pull them in. Or, I mean, I don't know if you have a setup that's conducive with like a barn that you could break her off from the rest of everybody else and put her in a barn or something. I mean, when we had Stormy, right there, like in between that rock wall and the AP, had some just 2-inch by 4-inch fencing that we put into a loop, butted it up against the rock wall, and butted it up against the AP. Ooh, almost lost that. Of course, it was almost empty anyway. But that's where once we moved Stormy out of the house, that's where she moved to, was right here. And of course, being in that spot was a really great microclimate because you have the sump for the AP on one side with a stock tank heater in it, and you have the rock wall on the other side, which is soaking up sun. So it's a little bit warmer. It was sheltered from the wind. So that's another thing that you might think about, like being able to have set up. But I mean, I guess the main thing that I keep talking about is making sure they get enough colostrum and milk and hypothermia. But I mean, reality, when we get a deep freeze, everybody's like, oh, the poor sheep. It's like, I'll get a deep freeze, I'll have them at the barn, and I'll go over there and there's nobody in the barn. They're all like at the top of the paddock chilling in the snow. Like, if we go down really deep and hard on a freeze, then they might spend a night or two in the barn. And then once it starts to let up, they're right back out in the snow. Like, they're sheep. They're built to be out in that. So it's just like headbutting. Like I tell people, their head's made to do that. Yours ain't. So anyway, and Rachel, if y'all have any other questions, just feel free to shoot an email over to us. But other than that, if nobody else has any other questions, I am going to get back at it. And I believe that there's going to be some other live streams going on this channel throughout the rest of the day. So anyway, guys, oh, one other note. I was going to try to go live earlier today, but apparently I don't have access to this account on my phone. And I was at the back end of the property. So I went live on my channel, which is Tactical Redneck Equipment. If I can think of it, I will get Nicole to like put something in the comments or something with a link to my stuff. But I need to get access to her stuff on my phone. But I'm probably going to start doing a little bit of live. And I do some stuff that you won't see here on my channel. I'm horrible about posting, but you know, there is some stuff on there. So anyway, other than that, yeah, I think that's it. So have a good one.